never fail in the mail. Yeah, got a rotten bill. Too much monkey business, too much monkey business, too much monkey business for me to be involved in. Salesman talking to me, trying to run me up a creek. Says you can buy it now, contract, pay me next week. Too much monkey business, too much monkey business, too much monkey business for me to be involved in. Blood had moved loose, trying to get me hooked, want me to marry, or settle down and write a book. Too much monkey business, too much monkey business, too much monkey business for me to be involved in. Same thing every day, go to school, no work, no need for me to complain, my objections are work. Too much monkey business, too much monkey business, too much monkey for me to be involved in. Take home, something wrong, I'm gone, no balls, order soup, offers cut for telling me tell. Too much monkey business, too much monkey business, too much monkey business for me to be involved. Into Yokohama, fighting in the war, army bum, army chow, army clothes, army car. Too much monkey business, too much monkey business, too much monkey business for me to be involved in. Working in the filling station, too many tasks. Wipe the windows, check the tires, check the oil, dollar, gas. Too much monkey business, too much monkey business, too much monkey business for me to be involved. Don't want your botheration, get away, leave me. Too much monkey business for me.
Should change is nothing new in man's life. When he first appeared on the planet, the world around him changed constantly, but it was the regular, repeating change of the seasons. In himself, too, he saw, from generation to generation, the same familiar pattern recur of growth, maturity, and death. And then, one day, man used his hand to fashion a tool. And from the first moment he used that tool, he changed the pattern of change. No longer regular, repeated. The new tool brought permanent change, till the new world it had created was changed again by the next invention. And as man's abilities grew, his world changed faster. Has tried to show that happening through history in 8 different cases. Each one a chain of events leading to an invention in the modern world. Those 8 inventions are behind me now, grouped together in a way that means a great deal to you and me. Telecommunications, the computer, the jet engine, plastics, rockets, television, the atomic bomb. The 8th invention was the production line, the system that makes it possible to make millions of copies of the other 7 inventions so that they surround us in the modern world and affect almost every aspect of our daily lives. Those inventions and all the other man-made objects with which we surround ourselves act, as I said in the first program, like a giant network, each part of which is interdependent on every other part, so that if change happens in one part, or one part fails to operate, the effect is felt throughout the network. Sometimes the effect of that failure is particularly devastating. You miss the bus, you don't get to work, somehow the work manages without you. Sometimes, though, how the interconnecting inventions fit together matters a great deal, and in that case, failure can lead to catastrophic results. That's why, for example, the particular way our 8 inventions fit together behind me here matters. If one of them fails, the triggering effect of that failure could lead to a rather particular kind of chain reaction. They're in a B-52. For ourselves, where the rate of change accelerates every second because every one of man's inventions acts like a trigger to cause change. This was the first great trigger of change, the plough. It appeared maybe 7,000 years ago, and when it did, it gave people the chance to grow enough grain not just to survive, but to provide a surplus to support craftsmen. And that triggered the beginnings of civilization. With enough food, the population expanded every year. Small villages sprang up, and they too grew larger with the population. In the spreading fields around the villages, the technique grew of irrigating the land from the nearby river. As the grain supply increased, it had to be stored. The idea of the potter's wheel solved that problem. Who it belonged to demanded the development of writing. And building these irrigation ditches taught people the skills of engineering and mathematics that gave them, in turn, architecture. And the need to predict floods for irrigation brought realization that the flood was annual. That gave them a calendar their government could use to enforce law through a police force and an army who needed weapon makers to protect the wealth of the country from invasion. A country that was now an empire, all because of the plough. You see the almost frightening difference between that simple trigger of change, the plough, and almost any object you care to name in the modern world. Because the world we live in is so much more complex, more interdependent, The potential for change hidden in the most humdrum piece of modern technology, the kind of stuff you can go and buy at the local hardware store, is immense. Because the number of connections between any one of these and the factories that make them, and through the factories back to the technology network, is enormous. And there are thousands of bits of humdrum technology like that. In recent years, more and more people have come to realize the need to try and find a way to look ahead, to see what kind of change is coming. If only we can find a way to identify which of the triggers around us is a key trigger, and which is going to kind of stay on the shelf and do nothing. That's why this series dealt with the inventions it did, and not, say, the hairpin or the ice cream cone or the toilet roll or 1,000 other examples of what you might call second-level technology. Although calling them that is a guess. Who knows what somebody's doing with the toilet roll right now? But I think it was fair to have gone with the ones we did as being the ones most likely to matter in the future. The question is, in what way are the triggers around us likely to operate to cause things to change for better or worse? And is there anything we can learn from the way that happened before so we can teach ourselves to look for and recognize the signs of change? The trouble is, that's not easy when you've been taught, as I was, for example, that things in the past happen in straightforward lines. I mean, take one over-simple example of what I'm talking about. The idea of putting the past into packaged units, subjects, like agriculture. The minute you look at this apparently clear-cut view of things, you see the holes. I mean, look at the tractor. Oh, sure, it worked in the fields, but is it part of the history of agriculture, or does other things? The steam engine, the electric spark, petroleum development, rubber technology. It's a countrified car. And the fertilizer that follows, it doesn't follow. That, as much as anything else, is a fellow trying to make artificial diamonds. And here's another old favourite. Eureka, great inventors. You know the lonely genius in the garret with the light bulb that goes ping in his head? In any of the series, you'll know what a wrong approach to things that is. None of these guys did anything by themselves. They borrowed from other people's work. And how could you ever say when a golden age of anything started and stopped? The age of steam certainly wasn't started by James Watt, nor did the fellow whose engine he was trying to repair, Newcomen, nor did his predecessor Savory, nor the fellow before him, Papin. And Papin was only doing what he was doing because they had trouble draining the mines. You see what I'm trying to say? This makes you think in straight lines. And if today doesn't happen in straight lines, you think of your own experience, why should the past have? That's part of what this series is trying to show. That the past zigzags along, just like the present does, with nobody knowing what's coming next. Only we do it more complicatedly. And it's because our lives are much more complex than theirs are, that it's not bothering about the past. Because if you don't know how you got here, you don't know where you are. And we are at the journey, the journey from the past. But is the past so random, so accidental, so one-off, that there's no trick to be learned from, no clue that we can use to second-guess our own futures? Or is there a pattern to it? Can we look into the past and see the future? You may not care, except of course you'll have to live with the result. It's your future.
My teacher said Japan and China have not
After this point, the right to vote will be limited to those only in category A.
memory enhancement drug will be released on
Esteemed gentlemen of the Academy,
By Africa and the
you
US.
show me the honor of calling upon me to submit a report to the Academy concerning my previous life as an ape. In this sense, unfortunately, I cannot comply with your request. Almost 5 years separate me from my existence as an ape. A short time perhaps, when measured by the calendar, but endlessly long to gallop through, as I have done, at times accompanied by splendid people, advice, applause, and orchestral music, but basically alone. Since all those accompanying me held themselves back a long way from the barrier in order to preserve the image, this achievement could have been impossible if I had thoroughly wished to hold on to my origin, onto the memories of my youth. Giving up that obstinacy was in fact the highest command that I gave myself. I, a free ape, submitted myself to this joke. In so doing, however, my memories for their part constantly closed themselves off against me. If people had wanted it, my journey back at first would have been possible through the entire gateway which heaven builds over the earth.
But as my dispelled was whipped onwards, the gate simultaneously grew lower and narrower all the time. I felt myself more comfortable and more enclosed in the world of human beings. The storm which blew me out of my past east of. Today it's a gentle breeze which blew me out of my past east of. Today it's only a gentle breeze which cools my heels. And the distant hole through which it comes and through which I once came has become so small that even if I have sufficient power and I will run back there, I would have to scrape the fur of my body in order to get through. Speaking frankly, as much as I like choosing metaphors for these things, speaking frankly, your experience as apes, gentlemen, to the extent that you have something of that sort behind you, cannot be more distant from you than mine is from me. But it tickles at the heels of everyone who walks here on earth, the small chimpanzee as well as the great Achilles. These distinguished German intellectuals lived through a period of great anxiety in the world, exasperated by the fear that autonomous thought and creativity were lost. It was exactly that Marx was describing in the alienation of species being a separation from our human essence, the part of us that is continually reshaping and constantly creating the world. It is that what distinguishes us from animals. Art, in its purest form, is a crucial element because it allows the conception of a different world and communicates the possibility that reason can penetrate existing barriers. There were few of these top tower power men. There were few of these top tower power men. There were few of these top power men. But as they went on their sea ventures, they gradually found that the waters interconnected all the world's people and lands. They learned that as a buccaneers that entered their sailors who often as not have been hit over the head in the saloon and drank aboard to wake up at sea, saw only a lot of water without navigational knowledge and no idea where they had traveled. Their critique of mass culture is quite complex and was based on the belief that culture had become a form of domination. For them, the industry was selling them patches of belief and ideas. People no longer had to think since the product prescribed every direction by signals. It is characterized by a pervasive manipulation of the consumer whose intellectual capacity is continually underestimated. There is simply a profusion of sameness and repetition by using sets of interchangeable details, sweeping away all particularity and flattening out anything distinct. The reification of the argument causes its autonomous parts to lose both their qualitative distinctiveness and their imminent interesting properties. And such progress, the penetrating effects of the rays of knowledge from all sides of my awakening brain, I don't deny the fact I was delighted with it, but I also confess that I didn't overestimate it, not even then, even less today, with an effort which up to this point has never been repeated on earth. I have attained the average education of a European man. That would perhaps not amount to much, but it is something insofar as it has held me out of the cage and created a special way out for me, the way out of human beings. There is an excellent German expression, to beat one's way through the bushes, that I have done. I have beaten my way through the bushes. I had no other way, always assuming that freedom was not a choice. To understand the development of intellectual specialization, which is our first objective, we must study further the comprehensive intellectual capabilities of the sea leaders in contradistinction to the myriad of physical, muscle, and craftsmanship specialization which their intellect and their skillful swallowing command, and to receive as a role is all in terms of the world, because the world's water continues to cover 3 parts of the earth planet. This meant that before the invention and use of cable and wireless, 99.9% of humanity thought only in terms of their own local domain. Despite our recently developed communications, intimate and popular writers of total earth, we too in 1969 are yet politically organized entirely in the terms of exclusive and utterly obsolete sovereign and separateness. This sovereign meaning top weapons enforced national claim upon humans born in various lands lead to ever more severely specialized servitude and highly personalized identity classification. As consequence, the slavish interrogated and scientifically erosionist of community questions: where do you live, where are you, what religion, what race, what nationality, all of today as mythological questions. By 21st century, these were humanity, man will already be already if you always learn this to me closely.
Long live space race. Long live.
right now. I think you might like to hear something from us. Nice and easy. I'd like to do that for you. But there's one thing, you see, we never ever do nothing nice and easy.
But I never lost one minute.
We always do it nice.
Worry about the way
Rough.
things might be.
We're going to take the beginning of this song
We'll keep
and we're going to do it
turning love.
easy.
Proud
But then we're going to do the finish
burning.
rough.
Say I'm blue.
So when we do, I'm weary. One more again. Still be rolling, rolling, rolling on the river. Listen. Left a good job in the city, working for the man every night and
said, I heard that exact same definition somewhere else, and actually had to go search for where I heard it and found it. And what I saw was I read it in a book called Understanding Your Microprocessor, a simple book about how to use a computer. Basically, the definition of liquid crystal semiconductor with basic channels is the exact same definition of a computer chip. What this all led to was a very simple and yet very profound thing. The cell is an information processor because the membrane reads the environment and adjusts biology. It's on the cell, it's changed,
Baby,
storm finish, would we find that the spirit but will never separate.
We deal both with Armageddon and the prophecies of the return is a difficult and serious subject. And when I started writing my books, which began almost 40 years ago, and the first book was titled For the Planet, I knew then, almost 40 years ago,